This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Magazine publisher and entrepreneur Judith Mancini is sharing captivating conversations with experts in their field about the latest trends in our ever-changing world to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Judith Mancini Today will spark your interest and inspire you to lead your best life ever. And now, here's Judith.
Judith Mancini Today is sponsored by Basic Brands, Inc., providing the highest quality specialty products in the natural food industry. Visit basicbrandsinc.com and enter JMT15 for your 15% discount on your very first order, including their best-selling Vitamin E ointment, which helps restore moisture and elasticity to your skin. Hey, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you may be located. I'm in California, used to be the Golden State. Well, I just want to congratulate the White House on having such a fabulous party on Monday, celebrating whatever that bill is called, fighting the inflation, blah, 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 because the inflation rate was up. Eggs were up 40%, and the Dow was down 1,200 points. And besides that, I was quite insulted that James Taylor would walk into the White House and sit down and play a song that was about suicide. This supposedly by Biden was supposed to be a day of rejoicing for him fighting inflation, but it wasn't. With James Taylor playing suicide, it broke my heart because my son took his own life last November. It was an insult to anybody who was listening to it. On top of that, I'm insulted that somebody who is running our country would go to ride in e-cars, electric cars, when there is nobody who can afford to buy them because of inflation. This is craziness. Do you happen to have an extra $60,000 to $90,000 sitting around now? Most of America doesn't. The majority of Americans don't. This is crazy. I try not to be political, but I am crying because some of my friends are on fixed incomes. Yes, I'm in a lot of networking groups. I'm in a lot of different groups, and some of them are fine, but some of them are suffering, and I'm very worried about them. It's not a time to rejoice, people. Put your flag out and remember to vote, because you don't have an airplane that you can fly for 1 hour to another state to cast your vote in person when everybody else is supposed to be watching their carbon footprint. And if mail-in ballots are so great, why couldn't our president use one? All right, well, that's my rant for today. Now, I want to introduce somebody that was introduced to me by a high school classmate. And that's why I think you should all stay associated and friendly with your high school class and your college class, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's so wonderful to be able to catch up with them and share the joys and the tragedies of each other's life and see what you're doing. So I'm going to thank John Pryor of the Gardena High School class of 65 for introducing me to his beautiful and caring wife. Now I'm going to read the About the Author page because BJ says it better than I could on my short little marketing pieces, and I think this is well written. BJ Elliott Pryor retired after 40 years as a flight attendant with Continental Airlines. She flew MAC capitals, operations, transporting soldiers during the Vietnam War. Fighting through struggles in her growing up years, she finds the faith to carry her forward. Moving with compassion, she shares her life and the stories of men of valor during the Vietnam War. She prays these pages from her book will bring healing and understanding to generations now and then. She and her husband are actively involved with their church as leaders and prayer warriors. They reside in Dallas-Fort Worth, blessed with an abundance of family and friends. Linda Lou Combs Weiss grew up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and has had a wonderful career in the medical field. Her desire to become a writer was fulfilled as she collaborated with BJ to write Behind My Wings. I want you to know that I flew MAT flights, M-A-T capitals, which were military air transport flights when I was a stewardess for United Airlines in 1968. Those were flights that would take the now Vietnam veterans, the people who were in the service, from wherever they were based at the time to the point of debarkation where Betty would pick them up. So we do have a few things in common, and I think that's wonderful. Another wonderful thing we have in common is although most people were drafted for the Vietnam War, some people did enlist, and we were very fortunate. Our brothers were very patriotic and did enlist, and we are blessed that they both came home. So with that said, welcome, Betty.
Thank you.
I have to read one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I was so excited when John said you had written this book and it was coming out that I immediately got a hold of him through our high school page and said, I have to have that book. I have to have it just as soon as it's printed. And you wrote me a little note. Dear Judith Mancini, thank you for your early request in purchasing my book. May you be blessed as your read stories of long ago. And little did you know that they were going to be so crossing over for both of us.
Yes, it's awesome. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And thank you for sharing what you did at the beginning of your podcast. I really appreciate your honesty and really the truth of what's going on. My life changed when I flew. I did it for 2 years, transporting our troops in and out of Vietnam. And after I had my 40th year, I always had wanted to write my book. And I couldn't have done it without my husband of 47 years, nor Linda Weiss. She's my co-writer. Without the two of them, I could not have completed it, nor come as far as I have today.
Well, we thank both of them also.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So let's start with the very beginning of your life, how you grew up, where you grew up. You grew up in California most of the time.
Yes.
And just a little bit of that before we get into your book, which I do want to show everybody. Here it is behind, whoops.
Yeah.
I always get my camera mixed up, Behind My Wings.
Yeah. That's a photo of myself and my brother on that cover. Well, yes, I was born and raised in LA. I lived in Hollywood for many years growing up. And then I ended up going to Hawthorne High School, which is near the beach. And actually, that's where the Beach Boys went to school. So my high school is very meaningful to me. And I just came back from our 60th reunion. And
wow.
Yeah, I mean, and just it was. And one of the special events that happened there is I had 16 Vietnam veterans who had never received the commemorative pin. And so I was able to give a little speech and each one of them. And it was a wonderful experience.
Well, wait a minute. You had 16 in your class?
Oh, there were more.
Or was this a combined class?
These were Vietnam veterans. There were more Vietnam veterans who went. But, but those that were at our high school reunion this last weekend, there were 16 of them.
That's just amazing to me.
Yes. Yeah. uh, you know, like I said, my life changed, and meeting all the veterans and doing what I'm doing now, I never would have dreamed that everything is happening the way it is right now. I love to go around and speak and thank them, because, veterans are heroes. And, you know that they have duty, honor, and country. They lay down their lives to serve in the military. And of course, yes, there are many who didn't have to go to war, but nevertheless, they served. They signed that paper to serve. And so I'm honored, really, to meet them, to be able to speak to them. And I do have a lot of stories, not only the ones in my book, because I started with my high school classmates. When I went to my 50th high school reunion, I said, how many here went to Vietnam? And they raised their hands, and I went to them and asked if I could write their story. It wasn't easy for them to give me their stories.
No, because as everybody knows, Vietnam vets, of all the vets who have been in combat and in war, are the most reluctant to talk about their experiences until you start delving into really sitting and asking questions that they might want to answer. You don't know what people have gone through in combat.
No, you don't. And as difficult as it was for them to share, I think in the very beginning of my book, I wrote about scripture in the Bible, Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. And that scripture helped me to keep writing, as tough as it was. There were times when I wanted to quit, but I would remember their faces. They were 18 and 19-year-olds. You remember that? And
so young. They couldn't vote and they couldn't drink.
No, but they could carry a rifle, and they could,
right.
Be in a war. Yeah. I always say there's a little saying, that heroes don't wear caps. They wear dog tags. And I love veterans. It is true. I love our veterans from all the wars.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So I'm not aware of too many books that have been written about Vietnam. There have been some movies made of Vietnam. But for a long time, I couldn't even watch the movies because my brother was there and had been there. And I think probably you, when you were flying the MAC flights, were probably the same. It was painful and frightening, and it was an unpopular war.
Definitely was.
So all of that adds in. But let's back up a little bit to your upbringing and what took you to the airlines, because you had a glamorous life.
Thank you. Yeah, I was blessed, but the first 5 years were not my best years. No. I was very young. When I was 13 years old, my parents are deaf. And so my world is totally different from the hearing world. There were no music, no phones, no TV, that aspect while I was growing up. But when I was 13, I had a girlfriend that moved. She was our neighbor, and she moved to Sacramento. And my parents bought me an airline ticket, and that was my first flight. And it was at night. And I remember flying and looking out the window the whole time. And the thought just came to me, I want to do this job. And so that was the beginning of my desire. And when I graduated from high school, unfortunately, I was dating somebody who wanted to get married, so I did. And we were only married for a short time. And then after that, I thought, this is my opportunity to apply and do the job that I really wanted to do. And so I did. I applied with Pan Am, American, and Continental. And they were all gracious. But Continental, of course, hired me and put me in the class. And the first 6 months of flying was not good because so young, didn't know anything about health and rest and vitamins. And so I always was sick. I'd be throwing up in the lavatory on landing and thinking, maybe this job is not for me, you know? But my mom, bless her heart, she said, just hang in there, just stay, you know, because she wanted the passes. My mom
Of course.
She loved to travel. So, and I'm so thankful that she encouraged me to stay. And then after you come off of probation, you are allowed to sign up for the military flights. And I did. I had no idea where Vietnam was. And I had no idea really what I was going to be experiencing. And I always share my very first flight, you know, because Continental worked out of the West Coast. We would fly to the bases, pick up the soldiers. The aircraft that we were using was a Boeing 707, and it was all one cabin. There was no divider. It was 165 seats on there. So 165 guys and 4 of us females. So, you know, we had a pretty good time on those flights. But the first leg was from LA, Travis Air Force. I'm sorry, it was Travis Air Force Base. We flew to Hawaii. And when scheduling called me, they said, throw in your bathing suit because your first layover is going to be Hawaii. And we never knew how long the trips were going to be. They would just tell us, pack for a 6 to an 8 day trip. We never knew our full schedule. We only knew it a day at a time. And so I arrived in Hawaii and of course fell in love immediately when the door opened with the breeze and all of that. And our layover was 3 days. So here I am laying on the beach of Waikiki in my bathing suit. And I'm thinking, these MAC trips may not be too bad, you know. Then the call came to go to the Philippines. We had a base there, Clark Air Force Base, which is no longer there. And so, again, I had no idea. The flight was 11 and a half hours. And we fed them a couple of meals and all the beverages they wanted. And then after we landed at Clark Air Force Base, we got off as we did in Hawaii. And the veterans stayed on. They didn't necessarily stay on the airplane. They would let them get off to stretch their legs, and then they would come back on. So it was in time for cleaning and
right. There was a brief layover to refuel and clean the airplane and all
of that. Sure. So here I am in the Philippines by the swimming pool having a Bloody Mary in the morning. And, you know, getting my hair done and a manicure and a pedicure for $1.75. Again, I'm thinking, this is not bad. You know, I think I'm going to enjoy this. Then a few days later, the phone call came for us. Our next flight was going to be Saigon. And I say it in my book, you know, it was duty. And this is what I signed up for. This is why I got all the shots that they gave us. Oh yeah. Remember?
Yes. Over 20.
Oh my gosh. There were so many of them. I'm thinking it took at least a month to get us ready for all the shots that we had. But anyway, so now I'm getting ready and we're going to go to Saigon. First trip, first leg. We served them one hot meal, which was awesome, and a beverage. But, you know, each leg, you know, from LA to Hawaii to the Philippines and now into Vietnam, you could see the changes on our soldiers.
Absolutely, I'm sure.
Yeah, and because none of us knew where Vietnam was and what are we getting into, and you know, so as we prepared the cabin for landing, I'm now looking out the window and I'm seeing rice paddies, I'm seeing jungle, I'm seeing hilly stuff, and I'm going, the reality of the war truly hit me. And I started to get emotional and I was like, oh, you can't cry, you can't cry. So we landed. And of course, we were told in training never to get off the airplane in Vietnam. If we had to, our soldiers meeting the aircraft would escort us to the bunkers.
And that would be running. It wouldn't be walking.
That's correct. That's correct. But I personally never went through that, but I do have coworkers who did. And so now everybody is off the airplane. And I'm remembering they told me in training, we're not supposed to get off the aircraft. Everyone's off, the crew, the pilots. And so because my emotions were right there in my throat, I thought, I'm going to cry, because now I see all the soldiers standing outside the aircraft. And I go up to the cockpit, called the flight deck now, and I let myself cry. And I said, if you're going to do these trips, you can't cry again. And so I never did.
Tough to do, though.
Yeah, 2 years hearing all the stories, going to the hospital and seeing them. Yeah, just kind of, I shut myself down, you know, with all the stories that they told me on the way back home. Yeah, and so that's why I wanted to write the book. You know, I wanted to tell their stories.
And I'm grateful you did write that book, and I'm sure the people that you interviewed and all were grateful too. It's a marvelous book, and I recommend it to anybody. It's not fiction, it's real life.
That's right.
And Betty has done an excellent job of interviewing these mostly men. I seem to remember you interviewed one nurse, right?
It was all men. They were the ones that enlisted or drafted.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interestingly, United would not let me fly MAC flights because I wasn't senior enough. When they started asking for volunteer stewardesses, these trips went so senior, but I was able to fly the MAT. So it was quite interesting. People were patriotic or they were against it. And I don't think that the stewardesses really were saying this war is okay. What we were saying was, we want to take care of these guys, and occasionally the female nurses. We want to take care of them. They're our age, they're our generation, and we feel for them. They're in our hearts. And I think that's why a lot of us did fly those, not necessarily because we were supporting a war that we didn't believe in or our partner didn't believe in, what have you.
Right. Well, if I had gotten the job with Pan Am or American, I never would have been senior enough to have flown it. But with Continental, I was. So, you know, God knew way back in the beginning.
That's right.
What I would be experiencing, and that I would be writing their stories and interviewing them and going around the country, totally around the country, to talk to them. I love it.
Yes, you do.
I wear my Vietnam hat. There it is. I wear it a lot, and you can see my jacket.
Oh, please show the whole jacket. Kind of stand up slowly and turn around. These are marvelous patches.
I carry all the branches on my arms because I love them and I represent them. And then look at all the patches they've given me. Whoops.
See, those are all patches that have been given to Betty as she travels the country, talking to different groups of vets, be they from the local American Legion post, or you've spoken in schools, churches, all over.
Yeah, I love to speak to the younger generation, either in elementary, high school, and college. And depending on what they need from me, you know, I kind of gear my speeches to the audience.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, right. You know, anytime I can honor our nation's heroes, I do. And I know you said you wanted me to share a couple of favorite stories, and
please.
I have a lot of favorite stories, but I already shared with you about how touching it was for me to be able to give the pins, the label pins to our high school classmates. Lapel, thank you. Lapel pins, and that was real special, you know. Thank you. And then another touching moment. It's not in my book because I've heard so many stories afterwards. But I was up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I was asked to speak at a memorial MIA event, and it was at nighttime, and they had their news cameras and newspaper writers, people. And during the service, they asked me if they had candles. There were 26 MIAs, and they asked veterans to say their names. When they said their names, then they took the candle and put it in a little area here. And I did that service. And then when they asked me to do it, I was so touched. I was so emotional, because those are MIAs from Vietnam, 26 missing in Green Bay. And so then afterwards, I was supposed to get up on the podium and speak. And when I got up there, I couldn't speak. I had so much emotion, that I just couldn't speak. And, the commander's standing next to me, and he's like, do I need to step in here? Do I need to take over here? And I said, just give me a few minutes here. I just need a few minutes. I said, you have no idea, that I could have been one of those taking them over. And, and I said, I was so touched by your service here to those 26 MIAs who have never made it back home. And I said, I can't tell you how much that means to me, because veterans, they know how to honor and respect other veterans and the family members as well. And I have learned and received so much of what they do afterwards, after the war. They never forget another veteran.
No.
And so when I finally was able to speak, and I told them that I was so touched by what they did tonight. And that's about all it. I had a whole speech, but I couldn't even give it. It was like, I said it in a few sentences and they knew. And then afterwards, the TV news people came up to me and they wanted to interview me. It's like, so what is it about? Why is this important that you do this service? And I said to him, in honor, and we have hope that those MIAs will someday be found and returned. The veterans have hope, their families have hope. But I says, as long as these veterans will live and other veterans after them, they will always respect and remember those 26 MIAs from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
And that goes back to No Man Left Behind.
Yes, it does.
And for our audience, the Airline Pilots Association and the stewardesses and flight attendants unions and all got together and formed an MIA POW group, which I became pretty active in. And we wore the bracelets of the MIAs or the POWs through the war. And many of them came home and many of them did not come home. And there still are MIAs out there. And well, it bothers me that the North Vietnamese will not give up where these people are, and I'm not so sure there aren't some POWs that are listed as MIAs, and that really bothers me, as I'm sure it does other people. So I just we're not ending the interview, we'll go on, but I just want to say our thoughts and prayers are with those families and friends, our two high school classes that do have some MIAs or KIAs or POWs. Our thoughts and prayers are always with you.
Always.
And we were very blessed that our brothers came home. Now, you had some very wonderful experiences that were fun when you were flying for the MAC flights and all. Tell us about some of those where you were flying in and you had people entertaining and running around, and you had wonderful fun experiences as well. Cheering these guys on.
Yeah. I don't want you to think that I was pure and holy out there, because I was far from that.
We don't talk about what went on in the 60s. That was a new era. I do honestly say, we were very young. You had to be single when you joined the airlines. You That's right.
Not be married, could not have children. So we were all single when we went out there. And you put us on the base, they gave us a card that identified us as a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. And we would get these cards and we're going like, why, you know? Well, they said in case we were captured or killed. And they said if you were captured, they would treat you as officers. And we know, I don't think so. So we'll be very careful when we're in Vietnam, you know.
Well, they could have also labeled you as a spy for the
True.
United States if you didn't have these cards that you could say no.
Right.
Name, rank, and serial number.
Yes, right. Well, before I tell you the fun part, let me just tell you that my co-writer, Linda, and I were invited to a dinner here in Dallas, and there were 26 POWs, and they were honoring Ross Perot, and it was a wonderful evening.
Wow.
Yeah, wonderful evening. So all Vietnam veterans, you know, they honored him because he helped them in many ways when they came back, and able to fly their wives to meet them. Anyway, so I was really blessed with that. But the fun times on the airplane, yes, because, you know, in those days we had no videos, no radio, no cell phones, nothing, you know, we were the entertainment. And what we would do, like after the service, I'd call back, or just before the service was over with. Well, first, let me back it up. Continental at that time, and I don't know about United, but we came out of our training, and our hair could not touch our collar. Could yours? We could.
Oh,
yeah, your hair could not grow past your collar. So many of us wanted to let our hair grow out because we all got it cut in training, and
we were young and still wanted to have beautiful hair.
Beautiful hair, absolutely. So we wore wigs in order to let our hair grow. And we, you know, the stipulation and the rules, you know, with the airlines. So I would call back a soldier and I say, I need your help. You know, they come back to the back alley. Okay, what can I do for you? They're so willing, bless their hearts. And I say, okay, we're going to do something fun. I'm going to take my wig off and I'm going to put it on you. And I'm going to take my apron off and give it to you. And I'm going to give you a pot of coffee. And I want you to go out to that aisle. And, you know, and of course the laughter, you know, it was
dear me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it was that air. But yes. And so that we would have fun. And then if they brought on a guitar, we'd let them play. During the holidays, the cabins were decorated. We would try to play all kinds of silly jokes and just
card games in the galley floor. Galley floor. Yes.
Yeah, you remember that. Okay, so
we did that too. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, there were no regulations for us. We couldn't go to sleep on those long flights. We had to stay awake. And so for those soldiers who couldn't sleep during the night, and there would always be a few, we'd go to them and we'd call them out and say, come with me to the back. And then we'd throw a blanket on the floor because there's not much room on those aircrafts. We'd sit on the floor. And here I am in my short dress.
I was just going to say, and they loved it more than playing cards because we had such short uniforms.
Yes, we did. Well, when we graduated, our uniforms were below our knees.
Yeah, well,
somehow
they shrank.
Yeah, somehow in the washing machine, they just got shorter and shorter, you know. So anyway, and of course, reaching over the overhead, you know, it was just those type of days. And then we would play cards on the back galley floor. And what I liked about it is we helped them get their mind off of where they're going. And they helped us because we couldn't go to sleep. And so that kept us awake.
That's
you
right.
know, so it's a kind of a combination of both during that time. Yeah.
There were many fond memories and many sad memories, but it's something I was very happy to participate in, and I'll never forget my time participating in those.
Right.
And I think maybe it was more poignant for you and me because we did have brothers who enlisted and were sent over to Vietnam. So I wasn't flying when my brother went to Vietnam, but I knew he was going to enlist because I was getting married and he told me he was going to enlist. So before I quit flying, I was the last class of United not to be allowed to be married.
Really?
So I was quitting, and he told me that he was enlisting, and I remember that,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very worried about that, obviously. Anyway, to
Yeah.
move forward with that,
Yeah.
many,
No.
many fond memories, and
And I was able to see my brother 3 times.
yes,
Uh,
yes, I thought that was miraculous,
It really
actually.
was. It really was. He assured me that he wasn't in any danger. Right. He said he did work in the administration office of the hospital in Cameron Bay. And, we would never let anybody on our aircrafts when we were in Vietnam because, of course, we couldn't tell the difference between the South and the North Vietnamese. So we always cleaned our aircrafts ourselves while we
Well,
were
and
in
they
Vietnam.
were dirty players. They would even put grenades in little children's clothing and things like that. So, I mean, that would only be the smart thing to do, is not to allow anybody on the airplane.
Right. But when my brother would be able to come to our aircraft when we landed in Cameron Bay, the other flight attendants, they cleaned and they let me go down so I could see my brother.
That was nice.
It
Yeah.
really was. It was
Well,
very
they were probably thrilled that somebody got to see their brother.
right. Right. Yes. Yeah. And I wrote about a Miss America pageant. She was actually Miss Wisconsin and she was 4th runner up. But her whole pageantry did a USO tour. It was a Pepsi tour.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, and she shares her wonderful experiences in performing over there. And when they went to Cameron Bay, her brother was able to meet them, and he was their escort for 3 days while they were in Cameron Bay.
That
But
was really special too.
it was. I loved writing her story, and it was very special. And it just showed me, here these are, beauty pageants, and and here they're going over to Vietnam to entertain and lift up the spirits of our troops. And they would be under all kinds of different situations, but they never complained. They did what they wanted to do. It was awesome. So she's in my book.
It was awesome. Reading that story, I was thinking about how many of them were actually under fire at different times.
Oh, yes.
And it was very dangerous. But,
Yes.
Bob Hope was a hard act to follow because he was fearless, man.
No.
And
Yeah.
to read some of these young ladies' stories that went over there, that one was very,
Mhm.
very spiritually lifting to me
Mhm.
to read her story.
Mhm. Yes, and we're still in contact with her because she's
Oh,
a
good.
friend of my co-writer, Linda. And so,
Great.
yes, yeah, we still keep in touch.
That's wonderful.
It was amazing how all the stories kind of came together, starting out with my high school classmates and then how it evolved to the neighbors that lived near me, then the post that was near me. So I wrote 5 stories from the post that I'm pretty aligned with. It's American Legion, Post 379 here in Bedford, Texas. And then to meet someone in Hawaii. Linda and I had gone there to celebrate one of her birthdays. I won't say the name. And so we kind of went there, not really to write because we had been writing. We just needed a break. And so we're walking, and we're walking through one of the hotels and we see this dog. And, there's not too many dogs in Hawaii. And so all the children, all the people want to go over and pet and love on the dog. Well, so did I. And so I went over there, not paying any attention to the gentleman who has the leash and is the owner of the dog. And when I stood up, he had a Vietnam hat on. And because Linda and I were really in the midst of writing, I said to him, "You're a Vietnam vet. When were you there?" And he said 69 to 71, which were my years. And I said, "I'm in the midst of writing a book. Could I write your story?"
That was amazing to me that he agreed to do it. And that was quite a long story.
Yes, it was. He took a pause and I just waited for him to answer me. And I know he was thinking about it. And he said, "Okay." I'll let you write my story. I've only told one other person, and that was my psychiatrist. So I felt pretty honored that he's going to share his story. And he was a medic. You know, medics, you got to give them the gold stars.
Oh, absolutely.
They were awesome. I had no paper, no pen. I was just in my bathing suit walking down to the beach. So I went into the hotel to the front desk and I said, give me lots of paper. I have to write. And may I have a pen, you know? And they did. And then we found a little spot and he shared his whole story. And I wrote, when I write a story, I also, audio. What?
Tape it. Sure.
You know, yeah, because
Record it.
Recording. Right. Thank you. So I always want to make sure that I'm writing correctly. And every time I wrote my stories, I sent them back to the veteran and say, okay,
oh,
correct
really? Wow.
Yeah, correct me.
That was wonderful.
I'm telling the story correct. And there was one guy, I don't know why I got so messed up, but I did. Bless his heart. He had patience with me, and I had to rewrite his story about 2 or 3 times. But, you know, that was just part of being a writer. I'd never been a writer.
Just you wanting to get it perfect like that.
Right.
So, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because the worst thing would be to misquote people and their experiences. And also, I can understand that. And I think that's admirable of you, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to tell you, I belong to a women's networking business group that's based in Dallas.
Oh.
I don't know if you would be interested. I don't know if they have speakers just to come to what they do, but I would like to introduce you to one of the ladies there who's a close friend of mine.
Okay.
And it might open some other doors for you to go speak. And I think your story is one that really needs to be told. Now, I have like 3 minutes left with you.
Okay.
And I would like you to share with people how you found your faith and how important it is to you.
Okay. After Vietnam, you know, we partied hard out there. I tell the truth. I burned the candle at both ends. And then towards the 70s, drugs had been introduced to me as well as drinking. And so I was invited to a beach party in Manhattan Beach, California. And when I walked into the party and looked around, they had everything that you would want to try. They'd already spiked the punch. And I looked around the room and I thought, I don't want to be here. You know, because my parents were deaf, I was never taken to church, so I don't know anything about God. So the house was on the beach. So I took my shoes off, grabbed my purse, and I walked down to the beach. And when I walked down there, I was like, so in such a horrible place. I felt empty, alone. And you would think 5 years flying as a flight attendant and living the lifestyle that I was, that I would be happy, but I wasn't. I was really empty. And when I got down close to the water, I just looked up in the sky and I asked God, are you real? Of course, I'm crying. I'm crying profusely because it's like everything from the war, everything from my childhood, just all of it just came out. I couldn't hold it any more in. And I was just crying profusely and asking him, are you real? And after I asked that, I had this terrific peace that came on me. And it's not a peace that I ever felt before. I knew something was going on. And I saw the beauty of the ocean and the star. Everything seemed to be clear to me. And it was nighttime. And I looked down at the sand and I hadn't taken anything. And I saw footprints facing me. And I knew then that God came down to me. And that changed my life that night. I'd never read the Bible, but I bought, you know, Good News for Modern Man. It was a paperback, New Testament. And I met God. I met Jesus. And Jesus introduced me to the Holy Spirit. And that was 49 years ago. So I've been walking with him. He gives me enormous peace, and he just helps me as I go around and speak and share how much I love the veterans and what God did for me. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Well, you're very welcome. I tell people often that I could not have made it through my life to this point without God and Jesus walking by my side.
That's right. That's
I
right.
just couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And until somebody personally asks Jesus into their lives, they don't understand about our faith. And so that's and I have the opportunity to pray. I love to pray, and I love hugs from veterans. If I can hug a veteran who was over in Vietnam, it means the world to me because I can thank him personally.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Betty, thank you so much for spending time with me today. And would you just tell them where your book is available?
Yes. You can go behindmywings.com and you can order my book there. And I also have my email and my phone number in my book. So if you want to call me, email me, and share anything you wish, I keep all that in my office. So thank you,
It's
Janet.
just a wonderful thing. I want to thank you. And I also want to thank Linda because I know she's there.
She is. She's
and
here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to have both of you there. And I thank John once more for introducing us.
All right. Bless
2
you.
years
I'm going to
ago.
send you a new copy. I'm going to send you a new copy of the book because my publisher allows me to go in. Once a veteran has passed away, I get to put closure.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to send
Thank
you
you.
another book. Okay.
Yes, and I will
Send me
email
your
you my address.
All right.
Thank
Love
you.
Thank
I can't wait to read it. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed it because I do respect our Vietnam vets and any vet or anybody who supports them. I think it's a very important thing, and I'm afraid that our country is not as patriotic as it should be still. And of course, every country goes through problems, and we don't want to be divided over them. We want to sit and talk and work them out and do the best thing for everybody. So I will leave you with these words. Oh, before I leave you with these words, next week is going to be one of my first broadcast of my new show, which is going to be called Golden Years, Golden Fears, because I think a lot of things are going on in people's heads, whether they're between 50 and 70 or 70 and 100, and they don't know what to do with themselves anymore. And now, particularly with inflation and different things happening in health after the COVID problem that we had here all over the world, I think people need to learn more about it, and they need to find something to do with their time as they grow older, because after your retirement, if you don't have a hobby that you're so enthusiastic in that you play golf 7 days a week, you're kind of wondering what to do with yourself, and you want to learn new things. So that's going to be some of my new shows, Golden Years, Golden Fears. And we're going to show you how to get back from the golden fears to the golden years. So with those words, I will leave you with these words that I do every show. Cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today. Thank you for joining.